I am not one to brag, but I did say that the Kansas City Chiefs would score 31 points in this Super Bowl. You can run it back. You can go back into the Thomas Take archives. You'd hear for yourselves that I did predict that Kansas City would put up a 31 spot on the San Francisco 49ers. Now, I realize how close I was to being wrong, but I was right. Neither here nor there. What's happening, everybody? I'm Ryan Thomas. Thanks for tuning in. And we got a big Super Bowl recap to play for you, to produce and to record for you today. It is Tuesday, and man, I don't go into work until 2 today, working the day job at 2 o'clock. So I can get behind the microphone, I can hit the record button, I can dive in to this Super Bowl that took place, obviously, this past Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. We're 2 days removed from the big game, not even 2 days removed, day and a half-ish removed from the big game, and the Kansas City Chiefs are world champions. And I have to say congrats to the Kansas City Chiefs, but most importantly, I have to say congrats to Andy Reid. Andy Reid really deserved this more than anybody, I think, in the National Football League as far as coaching goes. Andy Reid, 21 years as a head coach in the National Football League, and Andy Reid is now considered a Super Bowl champion. But before I dive into the game, to provide you guys with some interesting commentary, watching the Super Bowl this past Sunday, I realized quite a few things. One, the commercials were very, very tear-jerking. I mean, the ragged old flag with the Medal of Honor award recipient, as well as the history of this country, played out within a 4-minute just microcosm of a commercial, with Nate Boyer, with some of the other people that were in the commercial. That one really, really got to me as far as what that flag represents and what this country represents. And I rarely get into the political talk. You know, sometimes I comment on certain things, but I'm just proud to be an American. Really, that's really all I can say. As far as just putting things in retrospect, as far as the Kobe Bryant tragedy, about a week and 2 days ago, understanding that, we really live in a great place. That this is the best country on earth, and this is the land of the free, home of the brave, no doubt about it. And just being able to take in a Super Bowl each and every year, with the whole country watching this massive event, it really puts things in perspective for me as a football fan and as an American. And seeing the commercials that were sentimental as well, the Google commercial where the guy's talking to his phone, talking about Loretta, his wife, who had obviously passed on, and maybe he had started to forget about her within his old age. That one was a little bit of a tearjerker for me, as well as there was another one. Oh, the Josh Jacobs commercial. That was like, wow, what a rise it has been for that man. What a journey it has been for him, going from being homeless to NFL rookie sensation. I thought he was robbed of the NFL Rookie of the Year award. The fact that Kyler Murray got it really, to me, is a joke. You look at Kyler Murray's numbers, they were not that great. And Josh Jacobs were pretty good. A.J. Brown's were also very good. So both those guys, will say, were robbed of that award. And some of the awards that were handed out, Jim Harbaugh, or John Harbaugh, whatever, Jim John, whatever. He was given the NFL Head Coach of the Year award, where he went one and done in the playoffs at home as the number 1 seed. That's a little bit tough for me. I would honestly have given that to Mike Vrabel. He took a team that had not that much talent on it offensively and kind of found its niche and got it, to where it needed to be, as far as it could possibly be in the AFC Championship game, in my opinion. So, I thought Mike Vrabel was extremely deserving of that award. If anyone, maybe if McDermott would have got past the Texans with the Buffalo Bills, obviously, maybe he would have been under consideration as well, but neither here nor there. I just want to throw that out there. And, they play the 4-minute trailer for the Fast and Furious 9. F9, the Fast Saga, that's what it's titled. They haven't really fully, I don't know if that's really the full release of the title, F9, but I really am excited for this movie, and there are so many people out there that are just hating on the Fast and Furious franchise, and I know that that's not sports talk and sports conversation, but this was something that was a main topic within the Super Bowl, being that they played a 1-minute trailer for the Fast and Furious 9, movie, and the fact that John Cena is playing Jacob Toretto, which is Vin Diesel's brother, obviously Vin Diesel playing Dominic Toretto, and he's the bad guy. I don't have a problem with it. I like John Cena. I've always liked John Cena. He's a good guy. I'm happy for him that he's moving on in this next path of his career, going from the WWE to Fast and Furious 9. I think it's a great transition for him, and I think it could easily end up being as big or maybe even bigger than Dwayne Johnson in terms of his movie star power. He's got a lot more comedic humor, I think, than Dwayne. Not that Dwayne isn't funny, but I don't know. I just see a lot of potential for him. I see a lot of opportunities for him, and I'm happy for him. And also, I think that movie is going to be really good. I thought the trailer looked amazing. I thought the fight scenes looked great. I thought the action with the cars looked phenomenal. And I thought that overall, the commercials were pretty good. Now, as far as the halftime show, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Shakira. I'm a fan of J-Lo. I would honestly say I lean towards Shakira a little bit more. I like her international appeal a little bit more as far as how she, kind of transcends within the Latin American community. She is just an amazing artist. She's been around 20 years. J-Lo's been around 20 years. They put on a show, and there's a lot of backlash about this halftime show and how this halftime show was too risque, too sexual. I mean, I remember sitting last year during the Super Bowl halftime show, watching it with a few gentlemen and a few ladies, feeling very awkward when Adam Levine was gyrating all over the stage. So we know what to expect with the Super Bowl halftime show. It's going to be a risque, I guess, sex appeal show. It just is what it is. For anyone to be shocked by that, for anyone to be offended or anything by that, I think people find so many reasons to be offended that really are silly and really don't matter. And so that's kind of how I see it. And as far as the game goes, as we transition here, the game got off to a really slow start. I mean, it's safe to say I was a little bit, I don't want to say I was bored, but I was a little bit, little bit bored, I guess you could say. We'll just come right out and say it. The second half, really tight, 10-10 going into halftime. Both teams put up 7 points. Well, KC put up 7 in the first, San Fran 3 in the first, and then it was backwards with San Fran getting 7 in the second and KC getting 3 in the second. Then you had a second half to remember. Pat Mahomes threw 2 interceptions, which resulted in 10 points by the San Francisco 49ers. And then being down 20-10 going into the fourth quarter, the Kansas City Chiefs score 21 unanswered points for a 21-0 fourth quarter to win the Super Bowl. Pat Mahomes, this guy is a legend. This guy is one of the most unique quarterbacks I've ever seen to be down 3 separate times in a single playoff and to battle back time and time and time again. For as much praise as Pat Mahomes will get, and rightfully so, I believe the player that should be getting a ton of praise on this Kansas City Chiefs offense for how he played in this game was Damian Williams. Damian Williams, an undrafted running back. Damian Williams was phenomenal for the Kansas City Chiefs, and for an undrafted running back out of the University of Oklahoma to do what he did, to go from the Miami Dolphins to the Kansas City Chiefs, his second stop in his career, to really make something out of nothing each and every time he touched the ball was truly awesome. 17 carries, 104 yards. Damian Williams also had 4 catches for 29 yards, a rushing touchdown as well as a receiving touchdown. That was really the X factor in the game. When you have a running back that can catch passes out of the backfield as well as Damian Williams can, and make guys miss within space as well as Damian Williams can, that is a force to be reckoned with, and that is what we saw. So Damian Williams, 17 carries, 104 yards on the ground with a touchdown, and 4 catches, 29 yards and a touchdown. Pat Mahomes, his stat line for the day, 26 of 42 for 286 yards, 2 touchdowns, and, of course, 2 interceptions. You went a while within that game without seeing Pat Mahomes get a touchdown until he met, I guess I could say, who else? Travis Kelce in the end zone. So Tyreek Hill, the most dynamic receiver in football, he had a 9-catch, 105-yard day. He had a long 45-yard catch and a real clutch moment in the game as well. Sammy Watkins had a beautiful play where he completely burned Richard Sherman. More on him a little bit later. Sammy Watkins, 5 catches, 98 yards, 19.6 yards per catch. That's a yards per catch statistic as well. We saw Kansas City's defense really attempt to shut down that San Francisco run game, and moments there where San Fran was looking a little bit too good for the Chiefs in the run game, where they were getting the ball to Deebo Samuel on reverses, and Raheem Mostert was getting big carries, big chunks of yardage here and there. Tevin Coleman had a big run during the game. But my biggest question and my biggest criticism within analyzing the 49ers was the fact that Jimmy Garoppolo, I said on Instagram, will the real Jimmy Garoppolo please stand up? Which is obviously a pun on Marshall Mathers, Eminem, the real Slim Shady. Will the real Jimmy G please stand up? And I mainly said that because I don't know who Jimmy Garoppolo is. I didn't know it before the Super Bowl, and I don't know it now. And what I mean by that is, what type of quarterback is Jimmy Garoppolo? Is he a guy that the team can rely on him to throw 40 times a game and win? Is he a guy that you want to shy away from throwing the ball that many times in a single game? I think he's the latter, and I think this Super Bowl game proves it. I'm not trying to kick a man while he is down here. I'm trying to give an honest assessment of this game. Jimmy Garoppolo, 20 of 31, 219 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 interceptions. And on both interceptions, the first one in particular, I will say, a completely ill-advised throw. A throw that was forced, a throw that didn't need to happen, a throw that he was worried or leery of having the ball in his hands while he was being sacked, so he just chucked it up. And you can't do those things in the Super Bowl. The team that you're playing against is going to make you pay for it. You're giving Pat Mahomes and company more opportunities to go back out on the field and make a big, big play. So that had me scratching my head as well. Halftime. We're inching closer to halftime. San Francisco has the ball, and it's about a minute and change. They just get the ball back from the Kansas City Chiefs. A minute and change left, and Kyle Shanahan's letting this clock tick, 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 run down, to where the 49ers get the ball back with like 40 seconds left. And then they call a timeout, one timeout out of the 3 that they had. So I was very confused by that. I don't understand that. For the life of me, I don't get it. Did it have anything to do with why the 49ers lost this game? No, on the surface, maybe not, but it could have potentially helped them win it if you had that momentum heading into halftime with another possession coming into halftime. I was shocked by that. I thought that was a little bit of a, shall I say, gutless move by Kyle Shanahan to not get the ball down the field, to not give your offense the time that it needed. They did get the ball down the field to George Kittle, but it was called back on an offensive pass interference call, which will be debated for many years to come. If George Kittle was called for that, why was Kyle Rudolph not called for that against the Saints? Hey, it is what it is. We're talking about one game here, the Super Bowl. George Kittle did push off, And you can't do that. You can't push off. There can't be any push off. He pushed off. He got penalized. And in the biggest game, those are the types of calls that you actually want to see, where the refs are getting it right, where the refs are implementing the rules, and that's what they did. Now, Kyle Shanahan wasn't too pleased with it, wasn't too happy about it, but obviously he wouldn't be, being that, the refs are the ones that are calling that penalty against his team. A little bit of a recurring theme played out within this Super Bowl as well that I definitely think needs to be said. Who is to blame for this loss? And it'll go without saying that the recurring theme, I'll go right out and say it, but it goes without saying that the recurring theme for all the diehard football fans out there, they already know it. Kyle Shanahan was the offensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. A couple years back, the Atlanta Falcons had a 28-3 lead in the Super Bowl and blew it because Kyle Shanahan, calling the plays, wanted to throw the ball so much. He didn't want to run the ball with Freeman. He wanted to throw it with Matt Ryan and put the game in his hands. With that much of a lead, with that much of an issue throwing the ball, at that time, Patriots keyed in on it. Bill Belichick keyed in on that passing game, shut it down, and got some extra possessions that he wouldn't have had they decided to run the football, drain the clock, wear down the defense, and call it a day, pack your lunch, and go home. That is what Kyle Shanahan did in that Super Bowl, and that is what Kyle Shanahan did in this Super Bowl. Maybe not to the level that he did against Atlanta, but just that history repeated itself in two separate Super Bowls in which Kyle Shanahan was calling the plays for one team, the team that ultimately lost that Super Bowl. That really says a lot. And if I'm John Lynch, the 49ers president of football operations, general manager, you name it, and I'm running the show and I'm watching this Super Bowl that they were extremely lucky to get to, and I say lucky not that they weren't talented enough. They were definitely talented enough, but when you are 2 out of the 32 teams that makes it, you got to have a little bit of luck. That's just the way it is. They're lucky enough to get there. They make it. They get there. And for that game to go the way that it did, for that fourth quarter collapse to happen, John Lynch can't be too happy right now. And I don't blame him. I mean, if you had a coach that was a little bit more conservative and was willing to run the ball and drain the clock down a little bit, with also one of the best rushing attacks in the league in Raheem Mostert and Tevin Coleman, you would think that the coach would do that, but he did not. So if I'm John Lynch, I'm pissed at Kyle Shanahan. If I'm John Lynch, I'm a little bit scared, nervous, worried about whether or not Jimmy Garoppolo is the guy. They gave him a boatload of money before he had even proven himself in the National Football League. They said, here's the cash, here's the Brinks truck, we got you covered. And to me, I didn't see why. I didn't see what Jimmy Garoppolo did or what had he done to deserve that much of an extension. And, he had an okay year this year and all that, but I got to wonder if they had a better quarterback back there, would they be better off? And obviously a name that comes to mind is Tom Brady, but we'll find out. Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm not impressed by his performance. In the words of the great George St. Pierre, I'm not impressed by Jimmy Garoppolo's performance. I was bored by it. I was highly, highly skeptical as to whether or not Jimmy Garoppolo was the guy for the San Francisco 49ers, and I still am. Water break. Bear with me. So that is how I see that. That is kind of just who to blame, who to point the finger at. How can I pick between Kyle Shanahan, I should say, and Jimmy Garoppolo? It's a tough choice. But if I were to pick, I would honestly say that Kyle Shanahan deserves the blame for this loss. If I were to point the finger at one person, I would say Kyle Shanahan. And the reason I say that is because this is your second damn Super Bowl that you've been a part of. And you fell victim to the same thing that you fell victim of the first time. And this time you're the head coach. You got a promotion from offensive coordinator to head coach when you really didn't deserve it. You're just a namesake, and that's why you got it. and this is how you repay the franchise that brings you in to be their head coach? It's a little odd. It's a little odd to say the least, but hey, it is what it is. Now, moving on from the Super Bowl, want to talk about the present, moving on to 2020, things that you guys can expect. Consistent draft coverage from yours truly. We're going to be, going hard in the paint at the NFL draft as far as myself, and we meaning I, and any guests that join the show. I have a great slate of guests coming up throughout the next couple weeks. I will obviously keep you guys posted when those guys are ready to come on, when we get the scheduling worked out. Always, I'm trying to make this show and this podcast bigger and better each and every year that it's out. And this has been going on for 4 years now. And for me to just dive in to how blessed I feel and how honored I am to be a name within this community that discusses sports headlines, and people know me as that guy. It's truly amazing what this has done for me, for my life, and it's pulled me and pushed me in all sorts of directions that I've enjoyed greatly. So to you guys and girls, the listeners, I greatly appreciate the love and support. I've consistently posted Instagram stories, answered questions. You guys have asked me some really random questions. I was getting questions about whether or not I want to be a dad and what kid do I want, a boy or a girl. I'm getting all sorts of questions on there that I've answered. And for the most part, I've enjoyed that. Some of the questions are a little odd, but, it's fun. It's fun, and I really enjoy communicating with the viewers and the listeners of the show. And if you guys ever want to drop a question, you got to follow me on Instagram at Ryan Thomas Take. If you ever want to tweet with me at Ryan Thomas Take as well. The same handle, and obviously like the Facebook page, the Thomas Take Sports Podcast as well. Feel free to subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. My podcast is everywhere. It's on Google Podcasts as well. And I've just greatly enjoyed each and every year. I mean, this is 4 years, really 4 years to the day, or 4 years to the subject matter, where I dove into the Carolina Panthers Denver Broncos Super Bowl. That was the first Super Bowl that I covered on this podcast, and it has been a hell of a journey, meeting a lot of really great people and enjoying the company of a lot of fine folks. So thank you so much for tuning in. That was my Super Bowl recap. And last but not least, folks, I know for a fact that it was tough to see Sammy Watkins win a Super Bowl. I know for a fact that it was tough to see Pat Mahomes win a Super Bowl, when really Buffalo could have had both of those guys. But it's in the past. We have Josh Allen. We have Sean McDermott. We have a progression, these last few years that I've really enjoyed witnessing, and I'm only expecting bigger and better things for the Buffalo Bills for many years to come. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. I'm Ryan Thomas. It was the Thomas Take. Be sure to also check out my podcast. It'll now be available on the Trainwreck Sports Apple Podcasts and Spotify channels. For more, tune in there, tune in here, wherever you want. It's available everywhere. And thank you so much for tuning in.